Hello, Rob here from the Flanagan Homestead. I'm kneeling between two sheds where we keep our blueberry cuttings shaded and stored. And anyway, this is an update on our blueberry propagation project that we did with the horticulture class. So I did winter hardwood cuttings. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but it's pretty simple, and I've had a fairly good amount of success rate. And so I want to show you what we did and show you the results. It is now October 4th, and so we got a bunch of cuttings when we do our winter pruning of blueberries, so we just had the waste anyway. We took them, I had my students cut off branches and try to stick them in there. I have a video on that. I'll put a link in the description if you want to see how and when these blueberries were actually planted. And anyway, I have a mess here, and I intentionally left the whole mess because I'm going to show you what we did and did not do, and see if you can learn something on how you might want to propagate blueberries. So again, these cuttings were placed by my students in January. It's now October, so it's been about 10 months. And I will say this, not to throw my students under the bus, but I've had a lot of plants that I thought anybody can grow, and there's a certain percentage that the students kill. So I mean, some of the students do great, but some aren't. So this is a project that was started by a lot of kids. So I've got here's a quick look at some of these. We did various size pots. This size pot seemed to be pretty successful. It had enough depth to keep moisture in it. We did fine fir bark, and put it out here. We tried some of these really small trays. So this is a triple cell, and you can see there's weeds in here, but there's also a small blueberry bush that's going here. I'm going to pull this out in a minute and see how much root it actually has. I'm going to move back here and let you see on the camera. We just stuck these in the ground right here. You can see the sprinkler on the ground. It's between these two sheds, and you can tell that it's a bright sunny day if you look up in the background. So it was shaded most of the time. We had in the back here, we had wheelbarrows, so when the sun came across here, it shaded that earlier in the year. But now that it's later in the year, it's not that important. You will see I have the sprinkler right here. Here's the sprinkler that I had sitting in here, just sitting on the ground right in the midst of the blueberries. It comes up and just kind of sprays a light, drops all over the place. This is what kept the blueberries alive during the summer. We weren't paying much attention to them. I do have the ability to put them on this on a timer, and it went, I believe, 4 or 5 minutes at a time, and it was set to go 3 times a day. So it was like early in the morning, middle of the afternoon, and then late in the evening. So it kept the fir bark moist, and we just left the blueberries there, and they just kept growing and hopefully put down some roots. As you take a look at a lot of these a little bit closer up, you can see I have a lot of weeds in here. You know, when you first have the blueberry canes just stuck in there, they have no roots and they're going to pull out easily. And so if we get to the weeds quickly, we'll try to pull them out. Otherwise, we just let them grow in there and sometimes snip them off, and so that we're not disturbing the canes as they're trying to set down roots. But you can see in this pot, we've got a few different canes that are cuttings that have produced. This is growing a little bit. This is one of the larger canes. This is, when it's bigger than a pencil, usually we have difficulty getting it. Usually the smaller cuttings do better, like this one. But this is one of the times that, you know, I told the kids, we got to just go ahead and cut it, stick it in, and see what happens. And so this one doesn't have a ton of growth. Actually, it has this branch right here, and this is definitely larger than a pencil diameter. So we're doing pretty well there. Again, I've got a lot of weeds, and I'm going to pull out some of those, trying to be careful. What am I going to do with these pots right now? So it's going into the dormant season. I'm just going to leave them in the pots for this winter, and maybe transplant them right before they start growing next spring, and put them in a bigger pot, and then get them ready to grow up another year in pots, and then we'll move them out into the garden. I use the fine fir bark because it's an inert medium, not a lot of nutrient in there to encourage bacteria or fungal growth. After about 6 or 7 months, when I was pretty confident that they were putting out roots, and I wanted them to go ahead and be able to pick up some nutrients, I did start fertilizing probably in August. I would say I started putting a little bit of fertilizer in here. So it's August and September, they're getting some fertilizer, so before they go completely dormant and even lose their leaves, they're going to pick up a little bit more nutrient to be ready to take off next year. This is the one that's most surprising to me, that they actually have decent growth. Like I said, these are little 3 different cells on this tiny pot. There's no depth, but just because I kept a sprinkler on them and kept some moisture in it, you can see there's, of the 3 cells, there's a cane in each cell. I've got growth on 2 of these and none on this one. So I would think that being left outside, we had a hot summer. We had over 30 days of 90 degrees. So obviously keeping in the shade and having a sprinkler running, keeping moisture in there allowed these to survive a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and pull one of these out right now and see what we got. I think you can see there's a significant amount of root growth. I shouldn't say significant, but there is. You can see these white fibers in here. It is growing some decent roots, and it's going to be ready to take off. I'm going to go ahead and put this in some, since I pulled this out, I'm going to put this in some potting soil and let it sit that way over the winter. I'll probably do this with a few of them just to compare the ones that I leave in the fir bark during the winter and the ones that I put in the potting soil, and again do another experiment to see which ones came out better. It appears I have quite a few that look kind of like this. Here's what was stuck into the soil, and it's got a little bit of a leaf growing here, and I have a bunch of what looks like it's growing off of this same cane, but it's underneath the soil. So if we take this apart, I'm sorry, I gotta keep this up on the camera, being careful here. So we do have some white roots here that are, some of these are blueberries, some of the weeds in here, but you can see that it set off a new start right here, and this was actually underneath the soil. The soil level was right here, so it sent this out from a node, this leaf that's up here, but most of the leaf in the new growth actually on this one came from a node that was about 1 inch underneath the soil, and then it came up. So anyway, I'm going to stick this in some potting soil as well and let it overwinter in that. Here's a couple champions that we had. Here's a new growth, completely new growth up here. So this is, goodness, 18 inches long, and it's not coming off of a cane that's visible. This was stuck in for the cutting, and it has branched out laterally a lot of places, and then this, similar to the other one, grew from underneath attached to it and sent out 18 inches of new growth. So we're excited about that one. Here's another one that did similar. The cane that was stuck in the ground just sent out a few leaves laterally, and then from underneath ground, we got a new growth that's over 1 foot tall on this one. So it's doing really well as well. All right, let's get a closer look at this one, and then I'll repot it. So what do we got? Gently break this up. It's all tied together pretty well. I don't know. There's not a lot of weed in here, and there's a lot of root around the side. I don't know if I want to break this up much. Nope. This is blueberry root. I'm going to go ahead and stick this back in potting soil. And there's a lot of fine roots tying this all together. So there you have it. We have blueberry hardwood cuttings that seem to be successful, even with it being done by a lot of students that tend to kill things. But for me, I tend to do it this way. Hardwood cuttings, probably if you're talking to a propagation expert, is not the best way to do it. But I'm pruning my blueberries in January every year anyway. So take the cuttings, stick them in some medium, keep some water on them, keep them in a shady spot so they don't dry out, and have yourself some free blueberry bushes. Thanks for joining me on the Flanagan Homestead, where Christmas trees are my business, teaching and cleaning horticulture is my job, and outdoor projects are my passion. Hope to see you again soon. Be blessed.